This is the story about the very first man and the very first woman and a very important piece of fruit. We've already heard about how the world was created by God and how he did it from nothing. How he created the sky and the seas and land and plants and creatures. This is another version of this story that looks at the people who God created. Once God had created his beautiful world, he realized it needed to be looked after. The land wouldn't look after itself. It needed to be managed and nurtured. So, after he'd finished creating everything else, God used the dust of the ground to create a person, a man. God breathed into this man and he became alive with the breath that God had given him. God planted an especially beautiful garden in the east, in Eden. The garden was beautiful and fruitful, as there were many trees with fruit and seeds that were good for food. In the middle of the garden were two trees, very special trees. One was the tree of life, the other was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There was a river which watered the garden, and it flowed from Eden. It separated into 4 rivers: the river Pishon, the river Gihon, the river Tigris, and the river Euphrates. God took the man he had created and put him into the beautiful and fruitful garden. God told the man he was free to eat from any of the trees, except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that he would need to do some work in the garden to keep it beautiful and fruitful. God realized this was quite a task, and that the man would need a helper and companion so that he would not be lonely. By now, God had created all sorts of creatures, and birds and fish and livestock and wild animals, but none of these creatures had names. So God asked the man to help him. God brought all of the creatures to the man, and the man gave names to them all. But none of the creatures was suitable as a companion for the man. So God made the man very sleepy, and he went into a really deep sleep. While the man was deeply asleep, God took one of the man's ribs and created a new person from the rib. And God took the new person to the man, who called her woman, because it sounds like taken out of man. So the man and the woman were happy together in the garden. No one had invented clothes, so the man and the woman didn't wear any clothes at all. But they didn't know about clothes, so they weren't embarrassed. The man and the woman were happy together in the garden for a while, enjoying its beauty and the fruitful trees. But one day, a very crafty creature, a serpent, was talking to the woman. The serpent asked, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" "Oh, no, that's not true," the woman corrected the serpent. "We can eat anything from all but one of the trees in the garden." The only tree we mustn't eat from is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, said the woman to the serpent. In fact, we mustn't even touch it, or we will die, she said. Oh, don't be ridiculous, said the serpent. That simply cannot be true. You certainly won't die. In fact, he added, I am pretty convinced your eyes will be opened and you will have wisdom. You will see things as God sees them. You will know the differences between good and evil. Now the woman thought about this for a while. The fruit looked good to eat, and she liked the idea of wisdom, of seeing things as God did. So she decided to eat some of the fruit, and she gave some to the man to eat too. They both ate the fruit. Just then they realized they had no clothes on. They were naked. So they sewed leaves together to make clothes to cover their nakedness. A little while later, they heard a sound. It was God, walking in the garden in the evening. They were frightened, so they hid themselves in the garden. God called out to them. Where are you? God asked. We're hiding, said the man. We're hiding because we're naked and embarrassed and afraid. That's why we're hiding. Okay, said God, beginning to get annoyed. Who told you? Who said you were naked? Why do you need to be embarrassed or afraid? Have you eaten anything you shouldn't have? Have you eaten the fruit? The fruit that I specifically told you not to? Well, have you? God asked the man. So the man said to God, It's that woman, the one you gave to me. It's her fault. She ate the fruit and gave some to me, and yes, I did eat it. So God asked the woman, What have you done? The woman said to God, It was that serpent. He deceived me. And, well, yes, I ate the fruit. And the man, he had some too. It wasn't just me. God was really pretty annoyed about all of this. So first, God cursed the serpent. Oh boy, are you going to suffer for this? You are going to crawl on your belly forever. People are going to hate you and try to kill you forever. Then God admonished the woman. When you have children, the pain will be terrible. And the men will generally be in charge. You will have to do as you're told. Then God admonished the man. The land will not be fruitful of its own accord. You will need to work hard to produce food from it. It will readily grow weeds and thistles. You will only eat because you work hard to nurture the land and the crops. And your days are numbered. You will not live forever. Eventually, you will be buried in the ground from which you came. God said to himself, Now is the time. It is too dangerous for the man and the woman to live in the garden any longer, in case they eat from the other tree, the tree of life, and are able to live forever. So God made clothes for the man and the woman from skins of animals, and God banished the man and the woman from the garden forever. And just in case they tried to get back in, he placed cherubim to guard the entrance, and a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. The man was called Adam. He called the woman his wife, Eve, because she was to become the mother of all people.